Hello friends, welcome back to this online lecture series on earthquake resistant design of structures. As you know, in this series we are discussing the concept of ductility, and in the previous lecture we discussed regarding the different features that are required to introduce the ductility in beams, right? And in that case we saw that if we are able to make the behavior, or we can detail these beams, horizontal members, that is the beams, in such a manner that ductile behavior is achieved and the shear failure is avoided, then as a result of that the structure is likely to perform much better when it is subjected to lateral loads. So in today's lecture we are going to discuss further regarding one more element, that is the vertical element that is part of the lateral load resisting frame, and that is the columns, right? So today's focus of discussion will be on the ductile detailing of columns as per the provisions of IS 13920-2016. So let us start. Right, so now in previous lecture, as we have started the discussion first by understanding the behavior of columns in case of lateral load. So similarly here also, today's discussion also we are starting with the discussion, that is how do columns in RCC buildings resist the earthquakes. Now in case of columns, if I talk, then in case of columns, basically two types of reinforcing bars are there. First is the vertical reinforcing bars that will go along the height of the column, and second is the transverse reinforcing bars, which is also known as the closed stirrups, right? So these two types of bar are going to be the predominant types of bar which are going to be used in order to form the geometry of any structural column, right? Now what happens is that the vertical bar is going to go throughout, and the transverse reinforcement, that is the closed stirrups, are going to be provided at certain intervals along the height of the column as per the provisions of IS 139. But before understanding the detailing, we also need to understand the behavior or the failure pattern. Just like in case of beams, we saw that two types of failure were there. First is flexural failure, second is shear failure. So similarly in case of columns also, first we understand the pattern of failure, and then based on the pattern of failure we'll be able to detail our element in a better manner. So when I talk about the columns, the design of column is predominant, or it is governed by two types of cases. First is the axial case, that is the axial compression, and second is the flexural bending. So whenever we design the column, then the column is always designed for combined stress, that is the combined action of compressive axial compression plus flexural bending, right? So when this type of behavior is going to happen, then it is going to be little bit accepted. It is going to be an accepted type of behavior that we are expecting in case of columns. But there is second case, and that is the action of shear forces. These shear forces will be introduced due to the horizontal lateral forces that will be introduced due to earthquake shaking. And when this thing will happen, then as a result of that, the large amount of horizontal shear forces will be introduced in the columns, and as a result of that, the shear failure is likely to be initiated. And if the shear failure is initiated, then as we have discussed in case of beams, then it will lead to the brittle type of failure which we are not anticipating for the reinforced concrete buildings, right? So the flexural failure is accepted, but the brittle failure or the shear failure is not accepted, right? So if I look at the geometry of the column that is given over here, then as I have indicated in the previous slide, two types of bars. First is the vertical bar, which is going to go throughout the length of the column, and second is the closed stirrup, which is going to be spaced at certain intervals as per the guidelines given in IS 13920. So if I am talking about the diameter of the vertical bar, then the diameter of vertical bar can be a minimum diameter of 12 mm and a maximum diameter of 32 mm. And if I am talking about the diameter of the closed stirrups, then the minimum diameter of bar as per IS code is 8 mm, right? So from 8 mm onwards, and certain spacing guidelines which we are going to see in this lecture will help us to detail the column in a better manner, right? So now we talk about the reinforcement in columns. So we have seen in the previous slide that the closed loops are provided. Now what is the importance of this closed loop? Then these closed loops are going to help us in three ways. Which are these three ways? The first way is that whenever you are going to provide the closed loop, then as a result of provision of this closed loop, they will be able to increase the shear resistance of the column. That is the horizontal forces that are going to be introduced due to the ground shaking or the earthquake shaking, and as a result of that, the horizontal shear that will be transferred to the column can be resisted easily if these closed stirrups are going to be provided. Second, and the important role of these stirrups is going to hold the vertical bars along the height of the column together, right? If the columns reinforcing longitudinal bars are erected, But if the transverse reinforcement is not provided, then as a result of that, what is going to happen is that the buckling of bar is likely to take place. And when buckling of bar will take place, then the bars will not remain in position. So whenever you are going to provide this transverse reinforcement, then this transverse reinforcement will help to keep the vertical bars in position, and as a result of that, it will avoid the buckling of bars. And third thing is that it is going to confine the area of concrete section. So when the confinement will be done of the concrete section, then as a result of that, the bulging of concrete can be avoided, and at the same time, the shear capacity of the section can be introduced, right? So this is the three important advantages of providing the closed stirrups along the height of the column. Now, some peculiar features are to be followed when you are going to provide or when you are going to install these closed stirrups on the side. That is, the closed end of the stirrup should have a minimum angle of 135 degree, which we are going to see in the next figure. Right? What is the reason of providing these closed stirrups at an angle of 135 degree? When this particular thing will happen, then the corners of the columns will be tightly held together, and it will not open in case of earthquake shaking. Now, mind well, one thing from good detailing point of view is that this closed end of the stirrup should be alternately placed. That is, if I am having one end of the closed stirrup at this particular face, then the second ring at the position of the closed face should be on the other side. When this thing will happen, then what is going to happen is that since the locking system of the closed stirrups is interchanged, so as a result of that, the entire cross section will remain in position throughout the horizontal shaking. If all the ends are located at one particular section only, then in that case, what is going to happen is that the other end of the other corner of the column is likely to become weak, and it may expose out from that particular side. So, from good detailing point of view, it is always advised that the closed end of the stirrup should be alternately stacked. Then the other advantage is going to that is that the bulging of concrete can be avoided, and last advantage is that the buckling of bars can also be prevented. So these are three major advantages of providing transverse reinforcement throughout the height of the column. So as you can see in the figure over here, the diagram of the single stirrup closed stirrup is provided, where the entire stirrup is shown. Along with that, the 135 degree hook is also shown, and the length of the hook that is there, that is shown over here in the diagram as 10D, but that was as per the guidelines of IS 13920/1993. In the new guideline, the dimension is revised from 10D to 6D, and 6D or 65 mm, whichever is greater, right? So when this particular thing will be done, then as a result of that, the buckling or the bulging of concrete can be avoided, and the shear resistance of the section can be improved. You can see in the figure over here where the bulging of concrete has taken place, and for one particular case where the earthquake shaking was introduced. And in the second figure, the another important criteria that is highlighted by IS 13920 is shown, and that is if the length of any of the stirrups that you are providing is going to be greater than 300 mm, then in order to increase the cross-sectional area or in order to increase the confinement in the area, the cross ties have to be introduced. So the cross ties are also shown over here, that you can see in the figure by means of black color. Right? Now, just like in case of beams, we had certain basic criteria based on which the ducted detailing of beams could be done. Similarly, there are some basic dimensional criteria that are to be followed for columns as well. And these guidelines are, mind well, provided as per the guidelines of IS 13920/2016. Where the first criteria is that the minimum dimension of the column should be 300 mm or 20 times the bar diameter. Right? That is the either face of the column, that is the width of the column, or the depth or length of the column should be minimum 300 mm or 20 times the bar diameter. When you are talking about the bar diameter, then 20 times bar diameter, that is the bar diameter is equal to the largest reinforcing bar that is provided in case of beams. That is, if you are going to talk about a beam column junction, then this is my beam, this is my column. So whatever reinforcement I have provided in column, for example, I have provided 320 mm diameter bars at bottom and 316 mm diameter bars at top. So 20 mm is the largest bar diameter that is provided in the beam. So my column size has to be minimum 20 into 20, that is 400 mm. That is the criteria that is given by IS 13920. Then the second criteria is that it should be capable of resisting the horizontal shear that is introduced by the earthquake forces. And for that, the aspect ratio of the cross section of the column should not be less than 0.45. That is, aspect ratio is the definition. If you talk about the definition of aspect ratio, then it is the ratio of smaller dimension to larger dimension. That is B by D. Should not be less than 0.45. And lastly, the axial compression stress under the combined action of gravity and seismic load should not exceed 0.40 FCK. That is, again, the word here is important. That is the combined action of gravity as well as the seismic action. That is the combined load combination when is there. Out of all the load combinations, the factored axial stress should not exceed a value of 0.40 FCK. So these are the basic guidelines for the dimensioning of the column that we have discussed as per IS 13920. Next is regarding the relative strength of the beam column joint. Now in the previous lecture, we have shown that in order to introduce the ductility in the member, it is necessary that the inelasticity or the inelastic deformation should be limited to beam and the column should remain elastic in nature. And for that, we also saw the solution in the last lecture, and that is the moment carrying capacity of the column should be much higher as compared to that of beams. So the question comes is how much it should be higher. So IS 13920 is giving a guideline to us that the moment carrying capacity of the column should be greater than or equal to 1.4 times the moment carrying capacity of the beam. And for that, they have shown 4 cases where on the first side you can see that the beams are provided on the 2 sides, that is in the x direction. Then the second side where the columns are also shown top and above, and at the same time the movements from the beams are also shown. Then the exterior junction is also shown and the interior junction is also shown. So in all the cases you can see that sigma MC should be greater than or equal to 1.4 times sigma MB. If this is not the case, then that particular column as per IS 13920 cannot be considered as a part of lateral load resisting frame, and that column has to be detailed as a gravity column. Right? So gravity column, when I am talking about gravity column, so gravity column is the column that is going to carry only axial load. It will not carry any moment. Right? That particular column is known as gravity column as per IS 13920. Then next guideline is regarding the shear reinforcement in columns. So again here 3 or 4 figures are shown where the dimensioning of the sketch of the circular loop or the closed loop is shown. If I talk about the first sketch, then 2 dimensions are given. First is given as BC and second is given as HC. Now BC you can consider as the breadth of column and HC you can consider as the height of column or length of the column. Now IS 13920 is telling that if the minimum dimension of HC or BC is equal to 300 mm or less, then in that case only a single stirrup is sufficient to be provided. Again, that is the minimum dimension of BC or HC, that is the width of the column or height of the column, is less than 300, then the single stirrup can be provided, single closed stirrup can be sufficient. But if the height of the column or breadth of the column is increasing, or the distance between the adjacent faces of the stirrup is increasing and it is greater than 300, then compulsory the introduction of cross tie has been asked for. That is, you can see in the second figure where the height of the column is shown as greater than 300 mm, and when it is greater than 300 mm, then the cross tie is introduced. In case of cross tie also, the hook should be properly and curtailed, and again the length of the hook should be 6D or 65 mm, whichever is greater. And in the last figure, as you can see, where the height of the column is also greater than 300 and the width of the column is also shown greater than 300. So if that is the case, then you can see that cross ties are introduced in both the directions, that is along the width of the column also, along the height of the column also. The basic purpose of this thing is to increase the confinement area in such a manner that the concrete section remains confined at all the times, and as a result of that the shear capacity of the section increases, and when the shear capacity of the section increases, then it will be better able to resist the lateral forces that are likely to be introduced under the effect of lateral loads. Then next, coming to the splicing of longitudinal bars. Now if you remember in the last class, we have seen these guidelines for splicing and lapping of bars in case of beams also, where the guideline was such that the splicing of bar should not be done at the joint, splicing of bar should not be done at a distance 2D from the face of the joint. Same guideline is applicable here in case of column also, where the splicing of longitudinal bar should be avoided at the joint, and also the splicing of reinforcing bar should be avoided at 2D distance from the face of the column. Right? So where does the splicing actually take place in case of column? So the IS code, that is IS 13920 is suggesting that the splicing of longitudinal bar should be done in the central portion, that is the mid height of the column. So as you can see in the figure over here, HC is shown as the clear height of the column, that is the depth of the beam is deducted, and after that the clear height of the column is shown. Right? So at mid height, that is HC by 2, is the ideal location where the splicing of longitudinal bar should be done. Why this is so? Now this question can be answered if you are well aware about the analysis and the type of moment diagrams that are going to be generated in case of columns. So when the moment, if you talk about the moment diagram of columns in case of lateral loads, then it is always going to be a reversal of stasis, because once we are going to apply the load in positive x direction, second time we are going to apply the load in the negative x direction. So what is going to happen is that the column, if the moment diagram of column if I see, then it is going to be in this diagonal format. That is, the top portion will be once positive, bottom portion will be negative. Second time reversal of stasis, the diagram will be in this direction, that is the bottom portion will be positive and the top portion will be negative. Same thing will be continuing on the upper side also. But the important thing is to be noted is that the central portion will be the portion where you can say the point of contraflexure, that is the point where the moment diagram is likely to change its position, or you can say change its sign convention, right? And this point of contraflexure is the point where zero moment is likely to be there in the column section, and that is ideally to be located at mid height of the column, and that is why the IS 13920 is suggesting that the splicing of bar should be done in the central region, that is mid height of the column, because at that particular point, in most of the times, the possibility is such that the moment is also most of the times going to be the least moment, and that is why it is suggested that the splicing of bar should be done in the mid region. Then the other thing is that you can see that now which are going to be the stressed zones. The stressed zones are going to be the one that are near to the beam column junction. So when I am talking about the beam column junction, IS 13920 is saying that the beam near the beam column junctions, special confining reinforcement should be provided. Now what is the special confining reinforcement? Then special confining reinforcement guidelines are given in two forms. First is the height of the special confining reinforcement, and second is the spacing of the stirrups that are going to be there. So what the code is saying is that whenever the splicing of bars is done, then also the spacing of closed stirrup, that is the transverse reinforcement, should not be less than d by 2 or 100 mm, whichever is less. That is, in the portion of the splicing of bars, the stirrup should be closely spaced, right? Then once the splicing of the bar region is over, then from that portion onwards to HC by 4, as you can see in the figure, the spacing of closed stirrup should be d by 2. That is, d by 2 is the dimension of the column divided by 2. And if you look at the beam column joint, portion above beam column joint, portion below beam column joint, then you can see that that particular portion is known as the zone of special confinement reinforcement. And in that case, you can see that one arrow is marked in blue color, which is known as L0. And for this L0, the guideline as per IS 13920 is that the L0 value should be taken as either D, that is the largest lateral dimension of the member at that particular junction, or it has to be taken as HC by 4, or it has HC by 6, or it has to be taken as 450 mm, right? Whichever is the greater value, that has to be taken. That will give you the height of the confinement zone. And when you talk about the stirrups that are to be placed in this particular zone, then in that case, the code is saying that the minimum spacing of stirrups should be 75 mm and maximum spacing of stirrups should be 100 mm in this particular zone. And the other important thing to note down is that the special confinement stirrups should be extended along the beam column joint region also, right? So same thing is being explained here by means of the paragraphs that are taken from the IS 13920. That is, the lap splice should be provided in the center region. Each should be proportioned as a tension splice, and hence the hoops should be provided over the entire length at the spacing not exceeding 100 mm center to center. That is, the spacing of hoops should not exceed half the least lateral dimension, except where the special confinement reinforcement is provided. That also we have seen, and the length of L0 should be selected accordingly. That also we have seen in the figure. Lastly, we come to the special confinement near the column and the footing joint. So when I am near the column and the footing joint, so there also the IS 13920 is saying that the minimum anchorage or special confinement reinforcement should be at least 300 mm inside the footing in case of beam footing joint also. So once the column is over and from there on the footing is started, so from that particular joint onwards until 300 mm below this particular joint, the special confining reinforcement shall be extended, where the minimum spacing of stirrup should be 75 mm and maximum spacing of stirrup should be 100 mm. And at the same time, the diameter of bar should be minimum 8 mm, or as per the calculation given in IS 13920, right? So These are all important guidelines for the ductile detailing of columns. Hope you have understood clearly the reasons for the different zones which are going to be stress and which are going to be non-stress, and accordingly the guidelines that are provided by IS 13920. In the next lecture, we will be discussing regarding the ductile detailing for the beam column joint. So stay tuned for the further lecture series. Thank you.